Hi and welcome to Drumape. A ditto is sometimes misunderstood by people and they often struggle to plug it into their playing. So I decided to make a video about it and suggest an easy way to think about the mysterious dittos. Ditto is a fancy word for doubled hit. It can be played with one hand or with alternating hands. But for the purpose of this video, we'll look at it as a double hit with the same hand. So for example, if we have two 8s, like so, if they're dittoed, they would sound like this. If we have an 8th triplet, a dittoed 8th triplet would sound like this. The most basic way to think about the ditto is to make one hit and wait for the stick to bounce one more time. The idea is to learn to allow the second hit without actually taking part in it. This is also the crucial part. People often would try to simulate the second hit because they know it should happen. However, this results in two separate hits instead of one doubled hit. The key is to disconnect from the need to produce that second hit and actually let the stick bounce in a controlled fashion. This lesson is basically a sketch of what dittos are, and my goal is to get you started in the right direction. In time, you will polish the process and dittos will become more intuitive and flowing. But first, let's produce just one ditto with the right hand. To really zoom in on what's happening, we're going to divide this process into two distinct events. The first event goes like this. We start producing a full stroke, and at the very moment the stick collides with the surface of the pad, we freeze the hand and relax it at the same time, releasing the back two fingers, the pinky and the ring finger. What happens is that the stick rotates around the fulcrum point and bounces back freely, but our wrist doesn't actually move. Your aim is to let the stick bounce in as much of a straight line as possible. We keep a light grip on the stick with our thumb and middle finger, and our hand is relaxed and pointing forward and down, but the stick ends up rotating and pointing upward. Make sure that your fingers remain straight to slightly curved and not tightly wrapped around the stick. Doing that will absorb much of the rebound and leave you in a tensed up position, which is the opposite of what we want. So after you've done this for a while with both hands, and it is happening every time, we can move on to the second event. It basically starts where the first one ends, with the fingers slightly curved, hand pointing forward and down, and the stick pointing up and backwards, and held loosely with the thumb and the middle finger. Take a moment to get this right. Adjust with your other hand if necessary, until you get used to it. So from here we grab the stick, and what should happen is the stick hitting the pad. Keep doing this for a while until you get used to how rapid that grab should be. Don't use force here. We need a sudden snapping motion like so. You sort of force the stick down with a pulling back motion with the fingers. To accompany this, the thumb and the index finger twist around the fulcrum point and thrust the stick forward. The net result is that the stick rotates forward around the fulcrum point and ends up hitting the pad. We grip the stick tighter at this point, and now all the fingers are wrapped around the stick. The second event ends with relaxing the hand completely as soon as the stick is motionless. Make sure you do these with both hands. If the weak hand, left in most cases, is not feeling very confident, spend extra time with it. Usually the stronger hand is more coordinated, so it should get any exercise easier. Then you can translate to the weak hand by example and by trying to replicate the result, while memorizing how this particular motion feels. This of course goes for any exercise. Now it's time to connect the two events. First, let's simply perform them in succession. We produce a full stroke, but we freeze the hand and allow the stick to bounce freely back up in a straight line. Once the stick is in this position, we grab it and we let it hit the pad. We repeat this and try to shorten the time between the first and second events. Practice this for a while until you don't have to think about it as much. Now comes the part of actually making the ditto. The ditto occurs when you do what we've just learned, but you anticipate the grabbing of the stick. The key here is not to think about the first hit. It will happen, if only because of gravity. The point is to focus on the timing and try to grab the stick very shortly after it bounces up. Make sure your hand is relaxed enough to allow the stick to bounce in the first place. By controlling how much you tighten for the grab and how soon after the bounce this happens, you can control how soon the second strike occurs. The trajectory or amplitude of the stick gets smaller because now there is no time for the stick to travel all the way up. So now that you can do this with both hands, let's connect the right and left sides, or in other words, perform a double stroke row. The first thing you want to try is making a ditto with each hand in close succession to where they sound like 4 hits. We do this in both directions. Now let's try to do 3 dittos like this. Again in both directions. Then 4 dittos. And so on until you get a continuous line of dittos. Now you can begin trying to make them sound even and develop your endurance skills. Note that now the first hit sounds louder than the second. In another video we will see how to work out the evenness of our double stroke row by playing it in its inverted form. The biggest advantage to this particular approach to dittos is that for the majority of the process your hands are relaxed. You only really tighten for the grabbing of the stick, which happens in a fraction of the time. That will allow you to play these with ease for extended periods of time without your hands getting tired. Working out these exercises with both hands can take anywhere from a few weeks to a few months, assuming you practice every day. Mastering them will take years of playing, so it takes a lot of patience. But once you master them, you will be able to use them in many shapes and forms. Dittos are incredibly efficient and useful. Mastering dittos will also improve greatly your double stroke row, or in fact any scenario where you need to do multiple hits with the same hand. Please subscribe and like this video, that way I'll know you want to see more videos like this. If you have any suggestions for future content, please let me know in the comment section below. Thank you for watching Drumape.